Hello and welcome to episode 4 of season 2. I'm Dr. Megan Easley-Walsh, and this is History Stories. I'm an author, a writing consultant, and a scholar, and this time we're exploring an exciting Irish location that makes me think of my novel, Vow of Gold. Tucked behind Dublin Castle is another gem to visit, the Chester Beatty Library. Just like the National Gallery and the National Museum of Archaeology, visiting the Chester Beatty Library is free. It makes it easy just to stop in to see an exhibit or two, or you could easily get lost there for hours, at least if you're studying everything in intricate detail. It's not actually a library, but rather a collection of manuscripts, books, and artifacts from around the world. The tagline is Ireland's leading museum of world cultures. Born in 1875, Sir Alfred Chester Beatty was born in the United States and made his fortunes in the mining industry. Known as the King of Copper, he became a philanthropist and a curator. His collections became the Chester Beatty Library. Manuscripts include texts from the world's major religions, as well as fashion illustrations, Albrecht Dürer engravings, Chinese botanical prints, Persian story scrolls, and more. Here's a pro tip. If you're visiting, the Silk Roads Cafe inside of the Chester Beatty has delicious Mediterranean food. The Chester Beatty papyri are a collection of Old and New Testament texts from Egypt, largely from the 2nd and 3rd century, making them some of the earliest known examples. The treaters from my novel Where Fortune Leads would certainly have been excited if they'd stumbled across these finds in Egypt. As I visit locations such as galleries and museums, I often catch glimpses of multiple characters from diverse novels darting around the corners. In other words, a lot makes me think of my writing and the stories that my characters have told me. For Aoife in Vow of Gold, the colors whisper to her, wanting to express their own story through her hand in a similar way to how I feel about my characters. Back at the Chester Beatty, moving forward in time from ancient Egypt, last year the Hamilton Field Book of Hours from the 15th century was a special exhibit. The illustrations of the manuscript include intricate, beautifully detailed flowers and fruits. Although the manuscript was created in France over 500 years ago, the vibrancy of the colors bursts from the pages. The colors, especially the brilliant blues, are something that Aoife and Vow of Gold would love. Here's more about Vow of Gold. They must find the Book of Gold or risk ruin and disaster in World War II England. Graham Doyle, an American, is doing what everyone else is doing, trying to survive the bombs and battles raging in Britain during the Second World War. But he's also on the trail of a book from centuries ago that has the power to unlock a burning desire. In 1222, an earthquake shatters a merchant's confidence. With his life spared, he promises to make the most beautiful book the world has ever known. Keeping that promise proves even more difficult than surviving the earthquake. The rumor of the book reverberates through the centuries, but was it ever even written? If Graham can't answer that question, he risks losing his sanity. Graham's secretary Lillian's feet ache. She's desperate for an orange. Living in the midst of war has its trials, large and small, but also certain perks, like the handsome American soldier who catches her eye at a dance. More than wartime love hangs in the balance, as Lillian must help Graham search for the Book of Gold. At stake, forbidden love, keeping her job, avoiding death, not to mention the Book of Gold. Manuscripts speak to preservation, determining what is important enough to celebrate and present as a treasure to be shared. By their nature, manuscripts are labor-intensive. But there is also individuality, as I spoke about in episode 3 of this season, when discussing the manuscripts currently back in Ireland for the first time in 1,000 years. In Vow of Gold, part of the story is not only about the creation of a manuscript, but the search for it across the centuries. In Season 1, Vow of Gold was discussed in Episode 6, in relation to the famous Book of Kells, and the longing for peace during World War II. And now, as is tradition for this season of History Stories, let's end with the beginning. Perhaps it is inevitable. With millions, even billions of people in the world, there are bound to be differences and misunderstandings. What happens when the people nearest understand us least? Or when we suddenly question their motives? Those we call friend may have an understanding of the world and our places in it entirely different from our own. At least, that's happened once or twice before. Across the centuries, it happened more than once in this story. But some things are stronger, like a golden vow, things like the truth and real friendship, and those things have also happened more than once. April 30th, 1943, England. I remember those days, watching the artists toil under the blazing heat, or more often, dodging the puddles and downpours as they pushed their canvases through the streets. They were desperate for the all-important seal of the Salon. I guess we all were, really. From across the room, Flora raised a questioning eyebrow at her husband, Graham's story. Father was desperate for the approval of the Salon, I suppose is what I should say. He had carted us all off to Paris to pursue that dream. He was speaking slowly, as though the words were pulling him back to that time, and he was struggling to stay there in the present with her. I felt sick that day, he said, trying to get comfortable in his seat and looking as if the words he spoke were true now as well. It had nothing to do with the food that Mother had warned I should moderate. A 7-year-old boy can hardly deny his stomach the right to sample such delicacies gathered from the far-flung reaches of the earth, but he is not so young that the harshness escapes him. Seeing someone else confined, well, I just couldn't shake that. All at once, everything wonderful seemed to crumble. I'll leave you there, right on the precipice. Graham is encountering his memories from when he's a young boy in Paris. His father was an artist, desperately seeking approval. And now, in his own way, Graham is also seeking approval. He remembers a book, and he's determined to find it. If only he can do that one thing, maybe the world around him, caught up in war, will finally be put right again. Thank you for joining me in this episode of History Stories, and I look forward to sharing more with you about my writing, history, and more exciting locations in the next episode.